shift them to another direction. This is like, this was really needed to be.
Антон, раз. Раз. Shall we start? Okay. Good. Good morning, everyone. We are opening our first session for today, and we are going to talk today about energy. The most conversation on COP are going on energy topic, energy transition, just transition, green just transition, etc. And we are not exclusion of it. And every day, actually, we have this important conversation on energy sector and going to more renewables and to climate neutral, not only for energy, but also for economy, all the other sectors. I would like to welcome you on the green energy transition of Ukraine, the path to a sustainable future event. And for the opening remarks and welcoming works, I would like to invite here Deputy Minister of Ministry of Environment Protection and Natural Resources of Ukraine, Victoria Kireeva.
Вітаю всіх. Для мене велика честь відкрити цей захід, і в першу чергу хочу передати всім вітання від пані міністерки захисту довкілля Світлани Гринчук, яка, на жаль, сьогодні не змогла приїхати. Міністерські дні будуть в понеділок, але для неї дуже важливо, що ми сьогодні тут зібралися і обговорюємо таку важливу тему для України.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you at this event, and on behalf of Minister of Environmental Protection of Ukraine, Svetlana Grinchuk, who will be joining Ukraine's delegation early next week, I welcome you to this event, which is a symbol of our common commitment to restoring and strengthening our country.
Питання енергетичного переходу – це не тільки питання енергетиків, це питання, яке стосується нашої кліматичної політики, нашої кліматичної адженди.
Today we have gathered to discuss one of the most pressing issues of our time, the green energy transition. This is not just a new stage in the development of the energy sector, it is the basis of our climate policy and strategy for the coming decades.
Сучасний світ стоїть перед великими змінами клімату, і Україна є не винятком. Відповідь на ці виклики повинна бути рішучими та системними. І в першу чергу ми, як уряд, працюємо над впровадженням цієї політики.
The modern world is facing global climate change challenges, and Ukraine is no exception. The response to these challenges must be decisive and systematic, and the green energy transition is a key component of this process.
Ми чітко розуміємо, що досягнення кліматичної нейтральності неможливе без енергетичної трансформації.
We clearly recognize that achieving climate goals is impossible without a fundamental transformation of the energy system.
В жовтні цього року був прийнятий закон про основи кліматичної політики. Окремо хочу подякувати Олегу Володимировичу Бондаренку, народному депутату, який присутній в цьому залі, який встановлює нашу ціль 2050 рік досягнення кліматичної нейтральності.
The goal of achieving Ukraine's climate neutrality by 2050 has already been set out in the recently adopted law of Ukraine on the basic principles of state climate policy. And I wanted to thank the members of parliament, namely Oleg Bondarenko, chair of the committees with us today for adopting this groundbreaking law.
Наступним нашим кроком є розроблення низьковуглецевої стратегії розвитку України до 2050 рік. І саме в цьому павільйоні на протязі конференції КОП будуть презентовані перші результати моделювання саме цієї стратегії.
Another important element in the implementation of our climate policy is the adoption and the implementation of the updated long-term low-carbon development strategy 2050, and the first elements of this updated strategy will be presented here at Ukraine's pavilion at COP early next week.
Але ми повинні не забувати, що на протязі 3 років Україна переживає найскладніший період, коли руйнують нашу енергетичну інфраструктуру, коли руйнують наше довкілля. І як зараз в нашому міністерстві ми вживаємо новий термін – військова декарбонізація, яку ми відчуваємо на собі, і це потрібно також враховувати при впровадженні наших подальших планів.
Russia's war of aggression on Ukraine has caused catastrophic damage to our energy infrastructure, and inside the Ministry of Environmental Protection, we call it the military decarbonization.
Тому енергетична незалежність – це один з найважливіших кроків до незалежності нашої країни.
And energy independence is one of the most important steps to the true independence of our country.
Ми маємо величезний потенціал у розвитку сонячної та вітрової енергетики.
We have a huge potential in the development of solar and wind energy.
Наша стратегія полягає у створенні інноваційних, децентралізованих енергетичних систем.
Our strategy is to create an innovative, decentralized energy system that will be resilient to external threats.
І особливу увагу ми хочемо також приділити трансформації вугільних регіонів.
And we would like to draw special attention to the fair transformation of coal regions, the so-called just transition.
Ми повинні розуміти, що перехід від традиційних джерел енергії потребуватиме не тільки технологічних, а й людських факторів. Ми повинні наші регіони пристосувати до нових можливостей і до нових вимог сьогодення.
And this just transition is actually aimed at transforming our regions, and we need to adapt these coal regions to the new realities we face today.
Наші вугільні регіони десятиліттями забезпечували України в ресурсах, і на сьогодні вже вони потребують вкладення ресурсів, стратегії з адаптації та впровадження нових підходів в побудові їхньої життєдіяльності.
Our coal regions have been meeting the country's energy needs for decades, and today these areas need support in adapting to the new environment.
І наостанок хочу додати, що насправді Міністерство захисту довкілля та уряду дуже важливо, що цього року в конференції приймають участь не тільки урядовці, не тільки громадський та науковий сектор, а активно приймає участь наш бізнес, наші сектори економіки, які показують свої досягнення, впровадження зелених інноваційних підходів.
And I would like to highlight that we, as the Ministry of Environmental Protection and the representatives of the government of Ukraine, are very proud that on top of the representatives of the government and of society, we have a lot of representatives of private sector of Ukrainian businesses who are attending COP, who are here with us today and taking part in these vital discussions.
Дякую.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, for your welcoming remarks. We will have only 1 hour to try to cover all mentioned topics, and we will try to cover it not only from the policy side and formulation of policy side, but also we will touch some practical issues, because we have today incredible speakers, which I want to invite on this scene to talk about both, about policies, challenges, but also about practical steps and issues. So I would like to invite on this stage Oleg Bondarenko, Chairman of the Committee of Environmental Policy and Nature Management of Верховна Рада of Ukraine, Oleksiy Ryabchin, Advisor to the Vice Prime Minister on European and Euro-Atlantic Integration of Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anthony Marino, Chairman of the Supervisory Board of Naftogaz of Ukraine. Martin Jare, Program Analyst, UNDP in Ukraine. Thank you. Mariana Panuncio Feldman, Country Engagement Director, NDC Partnership. Careful. Okay. Yuliana Onishuk, President of the charitable organization Energy Action for Ukraine Foundation. As you might see, we are gonna expect very interesting discussion as we tried to bring together and parliamentary representatives, advisor experts, and also the energy sector representatives, the same as our international partners, and public, to hear public also opinion from public sector. And my first question, I need just to come back 1 second to the format. We are very tight in time, so I would really appreciate if you can keep your speeches up to 5 minutes. And maybe we will have in the end 5-10 minutes just to sum up and make some quite short summaries. So my first question will be to Mr. Bondarenko. Can you share with us some insights and some your vision about the challenges, how Ukraine needs to move forward with our climate and energy development to neutrality, to carbon neutrality of Ukraine?
Good morning, dear colleagues. First of all, I want to thank Victoria Kireva for the kind words of the role of Parliament for making our environment much sustainable, cleaner. And Ukraine faces significant political, economic, and legal challenges on the way to a green energy transition. We need to reform legislation, adapt infrastructure, and integrate into the European energy system. But the most important thing is that today we have a consolidated position. The government, business, legislative power have joined forces to realize this ambitious goal. It is through this unity that we are able to effectively adapt our energy sector to make it sustainable and independent. Legislative changes are a key tool for creating conditions for the development of renewable energy. Ukraine has already implemented a number of initiatives to simplify the procedure for connection alternative energy facilities to electricity and gas supply network. We are working on mechanism for the development of distributed electricity networks, which will allow citizens, communities, and companies to participate in the production of renewable energy. In July 2024, the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine adopted the law of Ukraine on integrated prevention and control of industrial pollution that will also facilitate the gradual transition to modern, environmentally friendly green technologies. At the end of 2023, the European Union made a historic decision to open negotiation on Ukraine's accession to the European Union. EU integration means that we have to meet high European standards, including the goals of the European Green Deal and the REPower EU plan. An important element of this integration is the implementation of the adopted RED III directive, which envisages a mandatory share of renewable sources in final energy consumption at the level of 42% by 2030, which in indicative increases to 45%. Achieving these figures will require twice as much effort from us, given the scale and nature of the destruction caused by war. The RED III directive sets targets not only for the energy sector, but also for other key sectors, including achieving 49% of energy from RES in buildings, or more than 29% of RES in the transport sector. In order to achieve the goal of the directive, we need to revise and update the mechanism for speeding up the process of issuing permits for new projects of SPPs, WPPs, and as well as for the modernization of existing facilities. This will help Ukraine to increase the pace of development of green energy, as well as to ensure a stable and environmentally safe energy system. At the same time, Russia's ongoing war against Ukraine creates serious challenges and legal restrictions for the implementation of the green energy transition. These restrictions affect Ukraine's ability to fulfill international obligation, in particular in accordance with RED III directive, and to adapt to European standards within the established deadlines. In these conditions, we have to find innovation solutions that will allow us to continue the green transition even in difficult circumstances. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that the legislative process is the foundation for achieving the goals of Ukraine's green energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your answer. And you described so many specters of challenges, especially thank you that you noted about the war, because it's make our situation for Ukraine quite unique, and also about the challenges with the European Union on our path to enter European Union, which we need to do now the standards much faster. But also one of the challenges where Ukraine is not unique on this path, it's also financing, because green transition, it's cost money. And here, I know that Alexei usually can really find an interesting corner of emphasize this of where exactly we might try to find money for our green transition. The word is yours.
So, hello, yes, thank you for having me here. And like, it's really hard to speak on this really interesting and great panels, and for you for organizing such a distinguished first and second panel. But like when you receive messaging that like currently Kyiv is under the ballistic attack, and you're thinking not about, you know, like how to save planet, but like whether your relatives, your wife and kids are safe. And this is really hard, and especially when the Saudi Arabia pavilion, just like the light turns out, like it reminds me of the situation of Kyiv with the blackouts. But nevertheless, we need to continue fighting for all of our values that we are doing, and we are here because of the values, because we do believe in what we are doing in the spirit of this negotiation. I would like to speak about finance. Yeah, indeed. Thank you for reaching this question. And like it's my 9th COP, and I can tell the development. I would say that like 9 or like 10 years ago, like to sit with the oil and gas companies in the same panel would be considered as a kind of as a full stop. Like, no, you shouldn't do this. But the transition went through, you know, like oil and gas company are the problem. Like from, you know, like let's discuss the solution of how to do the transition, and the regulation like that adopted through COP. Then, you know, like it was implemented into international, then like domestic legislation, regional. It led that you are not able to find money, cheap money for the oil and gas business. I don't know, like we need to speak, and I guess like my colleagues will say like, is it true or not? Is it working or not? But like from my experience and from what I see, like you can invest in extraction from your own capital, or like if you have partnership with another like oil and gas company, but like the private investors or the banks or the multilateral finances, they are under the Paris Agreement goal, and they are not investing in coal, neither to the gas extraction, maybe a bit in a gas generation with the kind of a lot of conditionalities. But this is like really hard. But like what this COP scene does, like they, you know, direct the international finances into the renewables. So you can have your own 20, 30, you know, like 40% of your own finance if you're like oil and gas or energy company. And like oil and gas companies stop calling themselves oil and gas. They are calling themselves multi-energy company or like whatever. So to show the wide spectrum of its activity. And like you can have your own resources, and you will definitely be able to attract investment from international finance agency, from different climate funded project for renewable, different kind of for the R&D in, you know, like hydrogen, carbon capture, storage, or whatever. But like to do this, you need to have some kind of like a planning. You need to do an ESG strategy. You need to do decarbonization strategy, which coincides with the governmental plan. And if we are like speaking about the European Union, which you've mentioned, and the parliament with the government adopted climate neutrality goal of 2050, and later it's just like phase out everything. accept technically possible and what will be kind of digested by our nature. So this is like a very ambitious and really hard goal. But like, and this is why I believe that the government put climate negotiators, internationals, legislators, and the energy companies to find a solution on how Ukraine will do its transition, how the company will share the responsibility of our people, choosing the European way of life and adopting this legislation. So this is how I see the finance here, and the process on how this panel is really attached to the global discussion on many important things.
Thank you so much for this comprehensive answer. Maybe you also need to start to write some kind of financial instructions, which we can, after each discussion, put it wider and wider and keep it together and start to talk a national discussion with our international partners also after COP.
So you mentioned that I need to have my press secretary to help me, or what?
Organizational issues we can discuss later.
Thank you.
And I would like to move on. And we do understand that during the wartime for Ukraine, we can't talk only about green energy. We also need to keep in mind our traditional sources of energy, even just to survive the winter, how it sounds. I would like to ask our next speaker, Mr. Marino, about the vision and strategy, how this our traditional energy, which we got used, can do this path for Ukraine. What are the issues? Maybe what are there some highlights and indicators? And I know you have prepared a presentation.
Thanks, Svetlana. You know what, given the time constraints, maybe I'll wait on the presentations. We have a panel later on methane emissions, and I can cover much of the same material at that time. So yeah, just a few comments about Naftogaz. First of all, very honored to be here as chair of the supervisory board. Ukraine's a very important country in terms of all resources, food, mineral resources, particularly energy. Within energy, natural gas, most important one, and it's important in the very short term to the country. It's important in the transition period to the new economy, a new energy economy that will exist for the long term. And Naftogaz is very happy to be the key supplier of that product for the country. To give you some idea about Naftogaz, it is the largest energy company in Ukraine. It is 100% state-owned, 100,000 employees. We serve 12 million households. You don't have to worry about the PowerPoint there. I don't think, really no chance to use it probably here. We have about 80% of the natural gas production in the country, about 90% of the oil production, a little less important product. Ukraine is a little more natural gas endowed than with oil. The scope of the company is very broad. We span from the eastern border in the Dnipro-Donetsk basin, where there's most of the natural gas production, to the Carpathians in the west. We have a pipeline system for gas that spans the entire country from east to west, an oil pipeline system that, again, covers the borders of the country and is capable of delivering and receiving oil and oil products from the Black Sea as well. And we have many, many downstream customers in gas distribution, some retail, gasoline, and a great deal of heat provision through our heating plant system that we have in the country. And in addition to that, a growing renewables presence as well. So natural gas as an important fuel during the war. First of all, I would say that Naftogaz, through its main subsidiary in the upstream sector, UGV, and its daughter company, Ukronafta, has really achieved quite a tremendous record despite the wartime conditions. Natural gas production up for 2 years in a row, breaking a long-term trend of declining production. In fact, a 7% increase in natural gas production over the last year. Really, that is quite an achievement And it's really only occurred because of the great deal of dedication on the part of the Naftagaz employees, drilling a record number of wells, making a number of very important conventional natural gas discoveries, small increase in oil production as well. This increase in gas production has allowed for the first time Ukraine to be self-sufficient in gas production, and in fact has allowed Naftagaz to put in place adequate storage to get us through this winter heating season. And in fact, that storage is another important element of Naftagaz and an important element for Ukraine as a whole. Ukraine, which has third largest developed gas reserves in Europe, second largest undeveloped natural gas resource, also has the largest natural gas storage system in all of Europe. This is mostly located in the western part of the country, where it can serve a number of European customers. We already have some of the large European E&P companies and some of the large European trading companies storing gas with us. Again, this is how one of the ways in which we can ensure supply to the Ukrainian people for this next winter as well. So increasing gas production over the last couple of years, it's a trend I think that can continue throughout probably the remaining war period, hopefully not a long period there, but once we finish the war, I think you have the prospect of a very large increase in gas production as Ukraine begins to exploit its unconventional natural gas resources that are available. Again, the production increases that we've achieved to date have really been throughout of conventional exploration discoveries. We've got this very large undeveloped unconventional resource as well that will begin to come into play in the next few years. So I think Ukraine can be a larger and larger natural gas exporter into Europe. And of course, when I talk about all this, I'm talking about natural gas as a transition fuel before we get to the new economy of the future. Naftagaz has already been making some significant investments in wind power and solar power. There's a great deal of solar power generation in the country, most of it from the private producers, but Naftagaz has a role in that as well. And we're also engaged in a number of ventures at the research level with various European and Western companies to develop the capability to transport and store biomethane. We've got hydrogen projects, geothermal projects by UGV in the western part of the country. So despite the war effort, we've continued to invest in a number of these renewables. At the same time, we've been able to achieve this natural gas production increase. This is a record of both transitional natural gas fuel development and renewable development that I think we can continue when the war is over at an even much higher pace than we have to date.
Thank you so much for sharing this information, and thank you for keeping us informed about the gas extraction and the plans of the company, how to proceed with that. But I would also like to ask, maybe you have some vision or you start to work on some kind of strategy on the green transition, or it's in the plans, or maybe you know already some percentage of renewables in your company to be increased. Just maybe some numbers to emphasize for our guests.
Yeah. So our plan would be, first of all, the first priority that we have in the country is the security of supply during the wartime period. And that's where this investment that we've been making in natural gas production and in increasing natural gas production comes in. We have to first make sure that we have adequate natural gas supplies during the war period. At the same time, too, we have to provide very significant returns to the Ukrainian treasury. We are the top taxpayer in the country. About 10% of the taxes that are remitted in Ukraine come from Naftagaz. So these are the most critical statistics to us in the short term. This year, 7% increase in gas production, 10% of the taxes paid in the country. We do have at the same time in the early stages, and they're pretty big absolute numbers, but they may be fairly small for a company the size of Naftagaz, increases in wind and solar power production, several hundred megawatts of wind power that are in progress, primarily in the southern part of the country, and a smaller number, I think it's on the order of about 20 megawatts of solar generation that we'll be putting in place in our transportation and storage subsidiaries. The purpose here being to make these subsidiaries in the kind of midstream to downstream part of the country company a little greener, but also less dependent on the grid, and also pulling less electricity out of the grid, making sure that more is available for the other parts of the economy and for the households in Ukraine. So as a percentage of the total investment in the company, it would still be small into renewables, although growing, and at the same time fulfilling these missions that we have to provide natural gas and heating, gas distribution to the people in Ukraine, and a very significant remittance that we make to the Ukrainian treasury as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marino, for sharing this two passes, one short and urgent and needed for Ukraine now with the situation of war, and your perspective on green transitions. Thank you so much. And we are moving on to Ms. Martin, and I would like to ask about the international parts in this energy green transition. Can you share with us some highlights? Up to 5 minutes, please.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think I will touch upon many of the things that have already been said, but as you say, from the perspective of the international community and the UN system, which are now present, very much present in Ukraine, supporting the implementation of the strategic priorities of Ukraine in the National Energy and Climate Plan, and for energy security as well. But of course, also in making sure that the Sustainable Development Goals can be achieved, in particular on this issue, the Sustainable Development Goal number 7 on clean energy access. So UNDP is one of the, I would say, the largest in the international community now supporting the energy sector and the green transition, green energy transition. So under our 5-year green energy recovery program that was launched this year and will last until 2029, we support both, of course, reliable access to energy for the people of Ukraine. This is, as we've heard, a #1 priority. But then at the same time, our second outcome under this program is to ensure that national partners have the capacities to accelerate the green transition while we're making sure that we have reliable access to energy for all. So what does this mean in practice? So for UNDP, our strategic priorities is first of all then enabling energy security and decentralization of the energy system. I think everyone here knows what that means, but in practice for UNDP, we are now providing over 440 megawatt of decentralized cogeneration to the energy system this winter. With the international partners in total, with the EU and the G7 plus partners, we're looking at almost 5 gigawatts of energy capacity this winter. But we also know that this is not enough. But what we are making sure of as well is that the equipment that we're providing can be fueled by hydrogen and biogas as well, when as those capacities are being developed in Ukraine. And of course, now with the decentralization and enabling this decentralized cogeneration capacity, it's less vulnerable to attacks, but most importantly, it mitigates the impact on the people and the environment, as we're expecting and looking at more ongoing attacks on the energy infrastructure in Ukraine. The second one is to prioritize, of course, renewable energy solutions where this is possible. As of now, we are focusing on providing especially backup renewable energy capacity, solar panels especially, for critical social infrastructure. So hospitals, schools, wherever this is possible, we try to make sure that we have the backup capacities that are as clean as possible. We had an emergency response in the beginning, in the end of 2022, when we were providing a lot of generators, diesel fuel generators. And of course, there's still need for that, but we need to really push to try and make sure that the backup capacities now are as green and as clean as possible. The third one and the final one I want to talk about is, of course, the energy efficiency. Ukraine has an immense potential to increase its energy efficiency. And here again, what Oleksiy also talked about, we're looking at financial mechanisms as a key tool to make sure that this is also sustainable, because there's, as I said, so much potential for this. Just over since 2018, the financial implementing energy efficiency through the ESCO modality has saved more than 15,000 tons of CO2 emissions. We're also looking at a lot of costs saved for municipalities, especially in all regions of Ukraine. And we're looking at even more projects now and hoping that even more municipalities would want to take up this modality to actually implement many of the energy efficiency solutions, also in public buildings, in schools, in hospitals. And of course, also what was mentioned in terms of legislation, we're also working on simplifying legislation, implementing legislation, and making sure that this is actually possible to do in practice, also collaborating very closely with the Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Environment. At the same time, building those technical capacities on all levels of governance and in all regions, especially those that may have to implement and build those backup capacities themselves. It can even be, we have UN partners also supporting on the household level, on the community level. This is also critical to make sure that we get through this winter. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Martina, especially for the emphasizing of this social and fair transition aspects, which are very relevant to the green transition and are quite challenging for Ukraine. I thank you for emphasizing this, and also thank you for this regional aspects of just transition, where we have quite common but still differentiated challenges. And thank you for working on that from the international support perspective. And now we're moving on to Ms. Mariana, and I would like to ask about just maybe a short overview of NDC partnership work, first of all, and second, what exactly to share with our visitors and guests, what exactly Ukraine is involving is, because I know that there is quite tight cooperation on it, and I know that NDC partnership is helping on the path to carbon neutrality to many countries, and has incredible experience in that. So the floor is yours. Please share with us.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. Thank you again for the invitation to participate in this discussion about the green energy transition, something that is important both for Ukraine, but as we know, from many discussions happening within these walls, for every country around the world. So maybe let me first, for those of you who are not familiar with the NDC partnership, let me say who we are. So the NDC partnership is a global coalition we have over 230 members. That includes more than 130 countries, developed and developing, and then close to 100 international institutions that are working together to support countries' efforts to deliver on their climate targets in line with the goals of the Paris Agreement and to drive sustainable development. What makes us unique is that we basically work with our member countries who basically countries articulate their needs, their priorities, and we then turn to our global coalition to match those needs with a tailored package of expertise, of financial and technical resources. So basically, we support countries' efforts to access technical assistance and finance more effectively to deliver on their NDCs. And basically, right now, we have, as I mentioned, I gave broad numbers, but we have right now 114 developing countries, basically from across the world. And what we have seen, and we've been basically working for the last 8 years. And during that period, we've seen basically close to 50 countries that actually have been coming to the partnership to request support to for their energy transitions, basically requesting support on how to advance their plans to transition towards renewable energy, energy efficiency, and low carbon technology adoption. And this has included support, mobilizing support to develop national or energy strategies that align with NDCs, basically support for enactment or updates of energy policies that to then drive green investment, as well as pipeline development and early concept development. We've also, because we have such a large foundation of member countries, we have supported considerable exchange among countries in terms of energy transition aspects. Over the life of the 8 years of the partnership, we've mobilized over $1 billion in support, basically in collaboration with international institutions to support green energy efforts. So one aspect to think about, and I'll speak in a second about how we've been collaborating with Ukraine, but as Ukraine drives further its energy transition, I think that there is an opportunity to come to the partnership to articulate not only cross-cutting needs with regards to NDCs overall, but also sector-specific initiatives such as those related to the transition of the energy sector. Now, moving forward, the NDC partnership is right now in this period where, we work with countries to support the entire NDC cycle. So we work with countries to develop NDCs if they come to the partnership for support on that, develop long-term strategies so that there is an alignment between midterm targets and long-term targets, as well as countries then move to implementation and resource mobilization. So right now, as we know, all countries have ongoing implementation efforts related to their NDCs, and we are working with all of our countries and partners to support those efforts. But at this period, when countries are preparing their new rounds of NDCs, the NDC partnership is actively engaged in supporting that. And basically, we have a window that we created 2 years ago to basically channel requests for support related to both long-term strategy development and NDC development. And so far, 72, and this is literally changing every day, but 72 countries have come to the partnership to request support for NDC development and long-term strategy development, including Ukraine. And specifically, in the context of the support that Ukraine has requested, the support includes, and it's actually, I want to acknowledge UNDP, which is the NDC partnership member that is actually has responded to that request for support from the government of Ukraine. So number one is the update of the long-term strategy in order to harmonize the long-term strategy with the relevant sectoral strategies and to really fuel and accelerate ongoing NDC implementation. The second aspect is related to the national hydrogen strategy. So basically that involves supporting a national assessment related to that strategy, the assessment of the operational plan, as well as looking at the national energy strategy and doing strategic environmental assessment of that and the national hydrogen strategy. So there is ongoing effort that I think is really important to underpin and fuel and drive the transition that Ukraine wants to drive forward. These strategic elements we hope are going to be instrumental in that effort. Maybe let me just close by saying that, the partnership prides itself in being meeting countries where there are. We're country driven, so countries bring their needs, and we really look forward to supporting Ukraine as it drives this energy transition, and it looks at other needs in terms of, how to drive an overall, design and implementation of it, NDCs, and that is aligned with the development priorities of the country. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your support. I think everyone is impressed by your numbers and large scale, actually. And we will have in this pavilion several topics on LT-LED's development, because it's quite active now. Process in Ukraine it just started. And now we're moving on to Juliana, and I am really excited to listen about the public perspective of how green energy transition can be fair. And it's definitely can't be done without a full involvement of public. So, Juliana, the
Yes.
floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure for me to be here, and I would like to start probably from the place where we are. So, Ukrainian Pavilion this year reflects 50 ecological initiatives. And one of it, and the focus, the heart of it, is to build back better and greener. And actually, what does it mean here to why build back and why greener? Just a general information for the audience that Ukraine has lost recently 35 gigawatt of its generation capacities and due to 1,900 missile attacks that happened for the last 2 years. And we are definitely facing, and that's exactly what Martina said, that resonates, and which is the truth is that threatens the energy security of Ukraine, the security of electricity supply, because the Ukrainian energy system is centralized, and by destroying one thermal power plant, the half of the city lacks the electricity and the heat. So our system is fragile. And when here is a map that also reflects where and what did we lose. It's a bit super uncomfortable for me to show you to click. So maybe just go with the flow while I'm saying, yeah, thank you. So we have lost a lot, and we are now having a possibility to rebuild Ukraine, but rebuild it in different way and rebuild it greener. What does it mean? Energy Act for Ukraine, as an NGO that was based as a response to the war back to April 2022, has one main mission and propose one main solution, is to bring the solar and storage solutions, energy storage solutions to social sector of Ukraine. Can you stop here, please? Yes, thanks. We as an NGO focuses on schools and hospitals in Ukraine since the war. And we built for them hybrid solar power plants on their rooftop with the storages inside. And our main aim is to guarantee that the electricity is supplied at the time when it is needed. All schools and hospitals are owned by the state, meaning more by the community. So by doing that, we not only provided electricity to kids, we actually do it for the public place, where they have bomb shelters, where they have canteen, right? So people may eat, may have electricity, may charge their devices. They might stay in a bomb shelter in case something happens. So when we started an NGO, my main idea behind, and it was April 2022, was not an emergency response to the energy crisis, because it was not yet there. It was just the, let's say, understanding and approach that if we have the situation and the choice and the possibility to build something new, we have to do it in a new way. And here we have more than 13 installations done and 24 installations by the end of this year. We build in regions that were affected by war, so it's primary north of Ukraine, east and the south. And next slide, please. And by doing so, and the next one too. And by doing so, we bring three main dimensions and we have three main impacts to the community. First is social, because we provide the electricity to the community, to people that either study or they get medical help. It is economic. And next slide, please. And in general, when we build for the hospital a solar power plant, there is an economy for the energy bill. We don't do it for that, but this is the side effect for the community, because it's them who actually pays the bill and not the hospital or school. So we help them to decrease their energy bill, and for the future, when the war is not there, they might use energy storage for net billing. So they might increase they might decrease their energy bills by using the storage differently. So for now, we're doing the platform first as an experiment, because all that is a hypothesis that it might work efficiently, that we would need a year or two to see whether this capacity is a good fit for hospitals and schools, and whether we can add something else. But in any case, as Ukrainian legislation allows, they will be able to use it for different purposes. For now, all schools and hospitals have storages, and that's what differs us from other NGOs. We always do it as a set. And the third, and probably the most, the one that corresponds to COPE the most, is an environmental effect. The next slide, please. Here we have an example on infographic that we do for the hospitals, where we can see that the economy per year, we can see how many CO2 emissions is also decreased by what we are doing. And unfortunately, right now, it is an emergency. But if we look at the long-term perspective, we educate community. We educate people in a way that if they have a solar power plant in schools and hospitals, it will be, the attitude to it will be that it is a normality. So especially for schools, our main aim is not only to continue for kids' education in normal conditions, it is to change a culture that renewables, climate change, sustainability, it is a lifestyle. And if kids are back to schools during the war, that not only was rebuilt, but it also has a solar power plant that certainly will impact on their mindset. At least I hope so. But in order to make it even more stronger, we add an educational part to what we are doing. In communities, we, on one side, we educate kids through our educational course on sustainability and green energy. So we explain why it is important and how does it work. And for communities, we make our own practical exercises with them, and we also inform them how to maintain, how to build it on their own. What are the main pillars of agreements with installers? So very, very practical, on the ground communication with the communities. Next slide. But if we talk about finances, I guess here we have, yeah, one of the example of the hospital that we did. Next slide. It is a big presentation, not for 5 minutes, definitely. Yeah, I will.
We are really running off time. Can you make it a little bit shorter, please?
I try. And I forgot what I wanted to say. So in the end, what the NGO does and how do we help communities is to bring a social effect, an economic effect, an environmental effect, but not to be stuck in an emergency response, but to think about long-term impact right now and what we can set with the systematic approach and inclusion of the communities and kids and its inhabitants all together to really build back greener and not as it was before. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliana. And especially for bringing your attention to the decentralization topic and all these real practical projects you are doing there and the educational side. That's a really quite important part of all this process if you talk about systematic approach and green transition. We're really running off time very much, and I'm not sure we will have a Q&A session in the end. So I may give the floor for just one question, very fast, quick question if it is. If not, then I move for a short summary and for the other 6 panelists. Okay? Microphone. And please maybe say who you are and to who you
Yes.
like.
Oleg Savitsky, Institute of Economics and Forecasting of National Academy of Science of Ukraine. So my question relates to like the role of data and data research and data transparency. And I hope this will be also discussed at the next event with our colleagues from Dixie Group. My question relates to what's Naftogaz is doing to like modernize its own data structures and accounting, and especially introducing the OGMP 2.0 and the related standards for accounting of methane emissions.
So it was definitely to Mr. Marino.
Okay, thanks so much for that question. And actually, we got a full panel covering the topic coming up, and speak to a number of things there. I'll point out that Naftogaz is actually doing quite a bit in this area. Start with the data part of it, and I'll cover briefly the more physical side of it after that. So we are a participant in OGMP 2.0. We've been making, since 2020, since 21, we've been making pretty full disclosure, public disclosure of our methane emission statistics. And actually, we're even moving up into the gold standard level of the in the levels of participation in that OGMP. So as you rightly point out, the data is very, very important. Without it, without measuring it, we can't really progress toward any goals. We have, with Dixie Group and others, been making progress on the data gathering and this reporting that I just talked about. A variety of technical methods used to determine what is our level of methane emission, LiDAR, sniffers, things like this. Then we can move into the remedial phase. We can fix the leaks that are identified. That's a very basic part of it. And also other technical methods like VRUs to recover methane and prevent that superactive greenhouse gas from going into the atmosphere. So for sure, we are conducting the data gathering, the data reporting, and actually the physical interdiction of the methane emissions. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much for the question. Alexei, you want to add?
I would like to ask short.
One
Sure.
minute.
I guess it's also like an interesting issue that the international finance and donor finance are not, how to say, in an appetite to finance the methane removal for the oil and gas company. Like, and it shifted also after the COP, because I remember IFIs financed like methane data gathering, and then like after data gathering and some field research, there might be some possible technical solutions that might be funded through different sources, but then it stopped somehow because you know, like it's not like IFIs is not an appetite to deal with this, but like Ukraine signed a global methane pledge to 2030 to decrease the methane emission on 30%, and this is like a flagship initiative of the US and the EU. And I guess like the ministry also like could work and to help our oil and gas champions like to decrease the methane emission and like attract some resources from our partners to help our companies to invest more in it.
Thank you so much for this edition. I would like everyone to, first of all, thank you for active audience and that you are listening and participating. And I would like everyone to say thank you for our wonderful speakers interesting today. And we touched so many topics and touched upon so many challenges, issues, started from legislation and expert point of view and problems of financial, and also the vision of the private sector and the Naftogaz company, and also the support and quite finding gaps and really finding solution of our international partners, and also the decentralization topics and social aspect and real project from the point of view of public from Juliana. I would like you applause to our speakers. And thank you so much. And we are moving on. In 3 minutes, we will continue our next discussions with speakers. Dear colleagues, I would like you to come back on your seats. We are going to continue as we are running out of time, and we still need to cover the topic of integration of traditional and renewables energy in Ukraine. And I would like to invite on this scene Miss Yulia Rybak, Program Management UNDP in Ukraine. Duncan Nightingale, Chairman of the Supervisory Board of Ukernafta. Monica Figay, Climate and Just Transition Expert of the Energy Community. Mr. Oleg Terlecki, member of the Supervisory Board of Ukrhydroenergo. And Mr. Anton Antonko, Vice President of Dixie Group think tank. Please take your seats. Oleg, can I ask you to remove one chair, please? Thank you. And also, we have together with us online the Deputy Minister of Energy of Ukraine, Mykola Kolesnik. And I ask to, yeah, I put the screen correctly. Mr. Mykola, are you with us?
Yep, I'm with you. Hi, everyone.
Good morning. We are very happy to have you here today with us. We are sorry that we are running on time and that we started with you a little bit late. Thank you for being patient and thank you for being with us. I just straight give you the floor.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you for this turn. And first, I would like to start that we are taking advantage to discuss very important issues. And here in Ukraine, once again, we are sitting under emergency alert because of ballistic attack. And we need to start to understand that war has crucial negative impact on ecology for the global, let's say globally. And it's very important to understand that each missile has more negative influence of so-called carbon dioxide than any wells that still works around the globe. And that is pillar number one. That is the most important issue I would like maybe to start from. The second important message from Kiev is that even despite the war, the renewables in our balance start to increase, and specifically it happens in household part. That is very important because it means that commercial side, from commercial perspective of view, the market is working in so-called green transition way. A lot coal production facilities were defected by missiles attack. And now taking a look on midterm and long-term perspective, we do understand and we try, and even today, to rebuild our energy system in more efficient, more greenhouse, let's say greenhouse balanced way. Starting from this year, we have, let's say, the first biomethane production. And that is very important point because it shows that even in the situation of quite complicated economic structure, quite complicated operational side, the business is investing in new green facilities. And this first biomethane in the stage to be uploaded to the underground gas storages, and now fixing all custom duties matters, we are working on the making first export of this biomethane to European market. Despite the war, we have the first production of wind power plant, additional power plant in our energy mix. We see huge intention around the local authorities to build green generation, solar park with best systems, as well as wind power. And that makes so-called the process of decentralization and local decentralization more institutionally sustainable, specifically because there are personal priority that they are making step into power generation which is based on the principles of green transition. At the same time, if we take a look on the big companies, on national companies, most of them has implemented corporate reporting systems. As a method of accounting of greenhouse gas emissions for compiling an ordered corporate report on sustainable development is very important now, because Ukraine is a part of future member state of European Union, should also be obliged on the CBAM regulation and all that protocols. And it means if we produce natural gas that should be exported to Europe, we need to be in line with all European regulation. That means the basic principle of GHG protocol, guidance principles of national inventories on greenhouse gases, which were implemented in 2006, a lot year ago. The same as guidance on Koreans, so-called. So the scope of application based on three main greenhouse gases, which we called anthropogenic originally. It's CH4, methane, carbon dioxide, and diazotous oxide, N2O. That's what we take in our scope of assessment. That's how we work. I'm very grateful as a Deputy Minister of Energy who's responsible for oil and gas, that all oil and gas companies is taking advantage despite the war to work with their methane pledge and to still define the potential points of emission in the infrastructure. And it's very important because it is the same signal that we're still on track to go to be under obligation of all European protocols. Thank you.
Applause. Thank you so much, dear Deputy Minister, for sharing so ambitious plans. And I would like to invite you to stay with us even longer, because exactly after this panel, we will talk about methane 1.5 or 2 hours, because in each conversation where we talk about energy transition, we come to methane emissions. So if it's interesting for you, we would invite you to stay with us. And now we're moving on to Mr. Rybak with a question of actually the continuing of previous panel, but from a more wider perspective, to share the highlights of the role of international organization in green energy transition. Please, Yulia.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Svetlana. Colleagues, I'm very, very delighted to be with you today. It is very important that we heard very strategic message from Deputy Minister Mykola Kolesnik, that despite of wartime, Ukrainian government staying really resilient and committed to green energy recovery, that renewable energy will be supported on the highest level, and UNDP the Green Recovery Program that is I'm representing as a program manager that was launched exactly this year, really supporting this, first of all, emergent response to provide support for local authorities and Ukrainian government to be resilient. And I would say that we are very proud that we have such a good partnership with government and on local level as well. And currently we have in our portfolio 442 megawatts. That is exactly to provide support for Ukrainians within the heating, water supply, exactly for this winter. And I'm very happy to inform you that this is not only distributed generation capacities, but also green capacities as solar panels for hospitals, for critical infrastructure. I can tell you that it is very important to provide a rapid response as a first immediate action, but also extremely crucial to have a strategic approach for green transition. And exactly under our program, we are doing that. So we are planning next year to provide exactly green solutions for local authorities. So we are planning to increase our portfolio within the renewable energy component. It will be biomass, PV panels, and I do hope that on long run, it will be hydrogen as well. Yeah, as already you heard that all our distributed generation units actually hydrogen friendly, that for long run we can really support with this solution. What we are having on right now with Kiev city, we are very proud that we can support around 65 critical energy needs for the city. That is really important. And what I would like to highlight that we are the one who are providing not only like procurement of energy equipment, but also installation. You know that in Ukraine we have this really challenges that a lot of international partners, they providing a lot of equipment, but unfortunately installation is still a challenge due to not easy situation with our energy companies, with local authorities, and we made these efforts. And now for Kiev city, we are providing support with installation of 54 megawatt gas turbine. It will be our first step, and the second will be the second gas turbine that we do hope to install as well. All this should be done for this winter season. That is very important. Yes, for example, in Odessa, we will support within the 45% of energy demand for the city. In Kharkiv, we will support within the 53% of energy need. And also what is important to say that we're also supporting such CHP that belong to Naftogaz group. So it is Krivorovska, Dniprovska CHP with 150 megawatts capacity that will cover mostly 35% of energy needs for Dnipropetrovska region. So our goal actually now is to provide, as I already said, also green transition support. And I'm very proud to share with you that within the collaboration with Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Infrastructure, we are providing legal framework support in order to have the green transition in place. That is also important. So we are providing now development of support for development of hydrogen draft law, green transition set of very important documents, and also we are doing rapid response expert solution for ministries. That is, I think, also crucial, you know, that we could really have our united efforts, as Svetlana, you asked, together with international organization towards our sustainable goals.
Thank you so much. I think Yulia deserves applause, because I first started to remember all the gaps that indeed our reliable partners cover, but then I decided not to go through the list because it takes much more time. Thank you, Yulia, for sharing that and being reliable to the government of Ukraine with the support of UNDP. And we are moving on to Mr. Duncan, and we again gonna talk about the traditional energy and also a role in your point of view for gas and oil sector in this fair green energy transition for Ukraine. The floor is yours. Can you closer a little bit to put it closer?
Okay, yes, great. Good morning, everybody. My name's Duncan Nightingale. I'm the chairman of the Independent Supervisory Board for Ukranafta. And apart from the oversight and management and running of Ukranafta, one of our chief roles is obviously to ensure the development of the correct ESG policies and procedures and make sure that they are implemented as soon as possible, well aligned with the United Nations sustainable goals. So we're working very hard in that direction to make sure they're all implemented according to the correct OECD governance procedures and policies. And we've made tremendous success in advancing those policies and procedures over the last 18 months. But before I go into how we're doing that, I'd like to just talk a little bit more about Ukranafta and how we are taking let's call it the more traditional energy sources and integrating those into our greener path going forward. So if we can go to the Ukranafta slide. Ukranafta is one of the largest oil and gas companies in Ukraine and is established to really fuel the nation's growth, ensure security of energy, not just now, but well into the future, also beyond, hopefully, Ukraine's borders internationally. So our commitment extends well beyond the traditional energy production at the moment, and we are focusing on innovation and the integration of our existing energy sources to a cleaner and future going forward with less emissions. So our vision is we're actually transitioning towards those goals now. We are, as I said, implementing the ESG procedures and policies. We've done a lot of studies and looked at our existing infrastructure in terms of gas emissions, making sure that we are identifying the leaks, we are capturing the vapors and emissions on the top of our tanks. It should be also worth mentioning at this point in time, Ukranafta did have a significant change at the end of 2022 in terms of its ownership structure. We are state-owned. We have two shareholders. One is Naftagaz, who you heard from in the earlier panel, and the other shareholder is the Ministry of Defense. So one of our obligations is not only to ensure the energy security for Ukraine and the peoples of Ukraine, but also for the ongoing war effort, which unfortunately the country is currently suffering. In terms of the risks and impact assessment, we have, as I said, looked at a lot of our facilities, which we've inherited from the previous Soviet era. So a lot of those facilities do need upgrading, and we are in the process of upgrading and putting the correct emissions capture equipment on them, repairing the leaks, and doing a full inventory of our methane emissions so that they can be addressed as soon as possible. So we do have a risk register. We also have one of the big four audit groups that are also working with us to identify the risks and mitigation measures and making sure that the measures we are putting in place are correct. So we sort of have three levels of activity ongoing at the moment. There is a senior management team within Ukranafta who are doing the operational work, identifying those challenges and correcting them. You have the supervisory board on top, which has 3 independent members. So that is another independent check that the right policies and procedures are being implemented. And then in addition to that, we are using outsourcing independent sources to verify the actions that are being taken. So if I may go to the next slide in terms of commitment to efficiency. What we're doing at the moment is reducing our emissions by about 20% and increasing our use of energy by about 20%. And one of the reasons we're doing that, again, is we have inherited the old equipment. We are now modernizing it. We are putting the vapor recovery units on it. We are doing the correct methane leak testing and correcting those leaks as we go along. We're also looking at pump efficiencies, injection efficiencies, and modifying all our operational and technical work with respect to the recovery and extraction of hydrocarbons. So that is sort of where we are in the terms of our traditional energy sources, but where are we taking it? So we're advancing renewable energy in terms of being able to take the gas that we are producing at the moment, and instead of drawing large quantities of electricity coming from the grid, which liquid, as well as unfortunately still a lot of coal power electrical generation in Ukraine, what we're doing is reducing the load on that grid and producing more of our own electricity to fuel our exploration, development, and production needs. And you'll see at the bottom of, sorry, back one slide, please. Back one more. If you look at the bottom of this slide, you'll see a list of actions that are being taken there. I won't go through all of them to save time. But in terms of the one on the far left, Borislav, for example, there's a lot of gas being produced at that facility, which is not really of public consumption grade, and previously was being just flared, causing a lot of emissions. So now we're taking that gas and producing our own electricity to the tune of about 30 megawatts. So there's about 130 megawatts of power that's being generated from gas that was being previously flared or in some cases being blended in to the national grid. We're trying to get to the point where we can generate our own electricity and be sustainable in terms of our needs. And
Mr. Duncan, I'm really sorry. Can we smoothly go to conclusions, because we are really
2 minutes, sorry. And on the far right, you'll see some other projects that we're engaged in terms of solar, which is about another 100 megawatts, and about 100 megawatts of storage. Now, these projects, if you go to the next slide, you'll start to be implemented in 2025. And you'll see there that there's projects slated and with funding already being negotiated to implement these projects past 2027. Final slide, if you go to the conclusions there, I think or final remarks, you'll see that we're definitely transitioning from those traditional energy sources more into the greener energy that we can contribute towards Ukraine's sustainable development going into the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Duncan. For sharing your clear vision on this transition period, and also for so deeply touching already wind and solar energy, and how you gonna slowly move there, but surely, I hope. And with these words, I would like to pass the floor to Ms. Terlecki to continue the voice of companies and maybe share their insights. We already heard a part on pre-COP event about incredible work with innovations and technologies and digitalization, etc. projects you are doing in Ukraine. And maybe you can a bit share more about your ideas and vision to develop. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for invitation to take part in this event. For us, for Ukhrhydroenergo company, it's a perfect chance to present our view, our achievement, our activity in development of green energy in Ukraine. First of all, I'd like to attract your attention that's not only I personally, but my colleagues from state-owned companies are presented here by the heads of supervisory boards. It means that green development, sustainable development is among main priorities of these companies. It's main priorities of Ukraine. Sure, that's very difficult now to implement a lot of efforts for the sustainable development, especially when every day we are under massive Russian shelling. We are facing a lot of other challenges and risks. Sure, our main activities now is related mainly with providing secure and reliable energy supplies. But we clearly understand that even now we must think about our future generation, about our kids who will live in our country. And that's also main understanding, main idea why we are trying to implement even such urgent measures, but with understanding of clear view of our future. I can briefly describe what is Ukrhydroenergo. Ukrhydroenergo is a state-owned company in which corporate governance reform is already implemented. We provide totally about 10 or 11% of Ukrainian energy mix. It's green energy, it's reliable energy, and we are a part of big Ukrainian energy system. So we are trying to facilitate Ukrainian producers to be integrated more in European markets. So we already launched project or implementing a guarantee of origin of electricity. So Ukrhydroenergo is the first company who started this project. We provide such possibility to buy this guarantee of origin for our potential exporters and consumers. What is our main activity now? First of all, we are continuing to produce green energy, electricity on our existing plants. Sure, we were shelled more than 140 times. During this war, we lost about 40% of our capacity. Sure, we made a lot of efforts to reintegrate, to restore them. One of our power plant, Kakhovka, is totally destroyed. Now, every our power plants was shelled, but we managed to connect to the grid a lot of our capacities. We continue to protect them. We continue to please be sure that's very difficult because we are quite big. So we have fixed location. We are our main capacities are on operail, but we are trying to make all possible to minimize the negative damage, to minimize these aspects. First of all, we paid a lot of attention to our people because in many cases they don't have even time to go to the shelter. So we implemented a lot of things. We built specific shelters on not far from their working places. But we clearly understand that our future in our hands. We made a lot of projects which help us to survive in anything. So if we consider that part of our facility could be damaged, please be sure that the other part will provide additional services.
Thank you so much for keeping impressing us and giving us so much highlights and sharing your work and achievements, even despite the 40% being destroyed during this time of during this war of the capacity of your company. Thank you so much for sharing with that. And we are moving to our next speaker, Ms. Monica. And we are talking today a lot about challenges, about solutions, about education and solutions from company and how to deal with these challenges and what is better for Ukraine on the path of green transition. Can you share very shortly? I would even like to ask you briefly with the points. What is your recommendation from perspective of energy community as a reliable Ukrainian partner during all these years?
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks for the invitation. Being conscious of time, plus the fact that actually so much was already said, I think I would actually limit myself to one point. We strongly welcome the recent development of Ukraine with the adoption of the National Energy and Climate Plan, the climate law, which the Deputy Minister highlighted has the 2050 climate neutrality goal. It has a 2030 target. And as we've just heard today, work on the long-term strategy is ongoing. And I think this is very important because it not only brings Ukraine closer to the EU acquis and to EU membership through such alignment of legislation, but also vision. But above all, it is very important that these documents talk to each other, that they all tell one consistent story. And why? It brings me to another issue that was touched upon today, financing. Actions require money. And even if it's only international financing that we're talking about, donors need a plan. They need a set of actions in a time scale to be able to finance. And the more the documents are aligned, the easier it is to find funding for them, because it will provide clarity to the donors what is the vision and the next steps for the country. However, international financing is not the only answer. The Ukraine is also working on a national emission trading system. This is actually something that I know, for example, tomorrow morning we'll be exploring. So from my side, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, especially for being in time. Anton, the floor is yours, and we know that without any, and it have been actually said today twice, mentioned in different prospects, that without analytical support, without digging in deep in the data and details, we can't build evidence-based policy. We can't build and foreseen how it should be. So how you do it with within the Dixie Group think tank, and what highlights you can share, because you was involved in all the process for the development of documents which have been set today for energy climate sector.
Yeah, thank you so very much for having me. I'll be very brief. I'll highlight just a few points. Continuing what my colleague has mentioned, planning is extremely important, but there is something that is even more important than planning. This is delivery. So Ukraine has adopted the National Energy and Climate Plan just recently, trying to put the seamless connection between energy and climate and environment. So what we need is to actually fill this framework in with projects that will change what we have now. And two key or buzzwords now is that something that we refer as future energy is actually now, and we need it now desperately. We need to innovate already now in order to be in the future that we've pictured in the NCP including. And this is not distant. This is like 2030. So 4 years, I would count 4 years from now. This is by far less than number of COPs that we've had. And thing number two is also, besides the innovation, besides the military force that we need to withstand the attacks that Ukraine faced just this morning, something we can do is also efficiency. We can be extra efficient in everything that we do. Not only the old infrastructure, not only the old energy gets shelled and bombed. These are also the renewable installations, we all know that. But what we can do, we can be extra efficient in placing them, in making the logic of them. So being efficient and being there, not tomorrow but now is, I think, two words that I would like to mention today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Antonenko, and thank you for keeping it brief. And just to summarize, probably not only that have been said in this panel, but also in a previous panel, we need to continue this conversation. We need to continue to bring together the parliamentary, the government of Ukraine, the representatives of our energy sector, NGO, our partners who support us, international also partners. So keeping this conversation, keeping the dialogue, and even in this pavilion during next 9 days, we will still have plenty of discussion on energy, and I hope we can go more deeply in this each topic. Thank you so much. Thank you speakers for this time and highlights. Have a nice day.